What is up, everybody? It is, of course, your boy, Andrew Esquire of The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. It is a lovely 10:30 p.m. here in Bangkok, Thailand. And today we have an awesome show for you, and one that I've been waiting to do for a little while because, you know, whenever I go on someone else's channel, I love to have them on my channel as well. It's sort of a big exchange, particularly if I can get one-on-ones, because I absolutely love to dig deeper into topics. And tonight's topic on the D files by Film Threat is something I really want to talk about, not just because, listen, it is my area of expertise as the Disney lawyer, but also because it is absolutely fascinating in the history in this company, and particularly the history of their recent downfall. There's so many twists and turns and pieces. And it seems that when you go back, when you rewind the clock, you can see every moment where it just goes downwards and downwards and downwards. And it's been fascinating. So tonight we are joined by Alan of Film Threat.
Hey.
Alan, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. You
Awesome.
were part of our Star Wars trial.
Yes, that was so much fun. I had so much fun doing that.
Yeah, that was a great time.
And I will say I'm very happy that I'm having on you before Chris, because, you know, it's it's priority here. It's priority.
Yes. Believe me, Chris would much rather me go on, especially at this time of the hour. It's late for you, but it's really early for me.
I think that's why he said you. He's like, oh yeah. Have Alan on. I'll come on another time. You know. So no, but it was really great. And also, you're the guy who's writing the D files, right? You did part one, You just dropped part two, so you're the primary source on this. So we're getting it straight from the tap today.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So real quick, let me get these super chats and Rumble rants. For the Emperor, member for 3 months, says, hey, Ellen, good morning from Texas. Hey, how's it going? Good morning over there to Texas. And since you're doing For the Emperor, I assume you're a 40K fan, in which case, please tune in next week as we do our 40K stream as I nerd out on Warhammer for the first time publicly on YouTube, which will be great. Also, Lila said on Rumble for 5, said, really like the Wingman review. Do it again. Never really into Star Wars, but really learned a lot of new stuff from the review. Now, I would love to do more film reviews, and I guess, you know, you can talk about this doing, you know, being over there in Film Threat. I wish we could do more. I wish you could show more on YouTube and be able to review more on YouTube. I think Wingman's kind of unique because it's a fan film. They're not going to go around and copyright claim people or strike folks. But in most cases, particularly if it was a feature film, that strike is a coming like the bolt from Zeus. I mean, that thing is, I mean, you just can't play 20 minutes of a movie without really, you know, pausing only occasionally. You really can't do that and get away with it on YouTube.
Yeah. You're kind of dancing with fire at that point.
Yeah, but Wingman, really fun, nice fan film, 7 years in the making. You guys can catch that in Michael's basement on that channel. And if you want, you can catch my review. I did the first 20 minutes of it. Did you see that at all? See that fan film at all, Alan?
I haven't. Yeah, it's a Star Wars fan film.
Yes, Star Wars fan film, better than anything. And speaking of the Star Wars trial, better than anything Lucasfilm has put out in the last 7 years. They put it that way, by a bunch of Germans in their basement with a literal budget of $4,000 US. So
no, that's the future of filmmaking. I mean, really.
Yeah, Germans in the basement with $4,000 for what is it, for 1,000. Let's see here. So also some members who joined kind of in between the stream, in between last stream and the first stream. KMW, welcome to the replay gang, and Gene Antinini, welcome to the replay gang. All right, so Alan, can you like introduce yourself a little bit first on the channel, because this is the first time you've been on this channel. Some people may have seen me go on Film Threat, but I think folks may not know more about you and sort of your background and what you've been doing over the past years.
Yeah, so just grew up a regular guy here in Los Angeles, and just loved movies, and just you know, there was a point where you know, I got frustrated with the office life and needed to kind of just strike out and do my. I'm getting really old, and I didn't want to die at a 9-to-5 job, And so just got into film criticism at that point, and ran my own personal blog. And in about 2017, through a bunch of mutual friends, met Chris Gore at an event. Chris Gore is the founder and publisher of Film Threat, and he had just restarted Film Threat as a website. And that was rolling for about a year or a year and a half. And that's when I met Chris, started writing for him. And then it was kind of like not too long, actually, when Sundance came along, that he needed me to basically run the website while the Film Threat crew is at Sundance, kind of like the man in the chair while they were in Utah. And just kind of prove that I know what I'm doing. I know how to work a website. I know how to manage and control a schedule. And from there became managing editor. And finally now I'm the editor-in-chief of Film Threat. And the exciting thing about the D files is, since 2017, we've just been mostly focused on indie reviews, and we still do. But this was kind of our first foray into investigative journalism. Because I talked to him a lot about bringing back that old feel of film, that kind of Gonzo style journalism, and and the issue of time came up, because do we have time to do this? What were the subjects going to be? And the D files just kind of came out of nowhere, and it kind of ignited our first foray back into investigative journalism. And from there, the whole WGA situation was the second, and we feel like we've got a few legs to stand on here, and that we can bring that into 2024.
Yeah, you've got a lot of momentum. I mean, and once again, I think generally people are hungry for good investigative journalism, because there isn't much out there, and in a world where you really can't you don't know really what major news sources to trust, where everything's got to be fact checked and double fact checked. Real investigative journalism that's giving you a full background, a full picture. I think we need more of that. Certainly need more of that.
I mean, truth be told, I mean, we can go into the history of it, but we had people just reach out to us about what's happening at Disney, what's happening in the WGA. And, a lot of these people aren't going to the mainstream media for this, because, there's a big filter there. And there's, and let's face it, the mainstream media gatekeeps a lot of the information, the truth that we should be hearing.
Particularly regarding Disney. Regarding Disney. They are especially protected by the access media, because they know that if they publish something wrong about Disney is going to cut them off, right? So Disney's the threat is, hey, well, you've said this bad thing about us, so we're not going to tell you anything anymore. Yeah. Right? So
we're kind of been talking, Chris. We're kind of figuring out what are the odds that I'll get my press pass for D23.
I mean,
it'll be weird. I kind of see it as, if I get a press pass for D23, they're not really reading us. they're not really taking us seriously. But we'll see.
All I'm saying is, check all your drinks. Like if you go to D23, make Chris drink the drinks first as like the poison tester before you go anywhere. I mean, it's. I'm still kind of joking, but not joking, because I was debating, I'm over here in Asia, and I thought about, oh, well, should I go to Tokyo Disney World? I've never been there before. I'm like, am I going to have to wear like a hat, and like a funny mustache, and kind of sneak in so they don't take me out? It's a different company though. So
maybe I'm wrong, but does Disney, how much control does Disney really have in Tokyo? And
some, but not much. Some, but not much. Right. So
they actually safe in Tokyo.
In a weird way. Quick here. Is This Live gifted 20 legal mindset memberships? Hey. Thank you so much, Is This Live. Real quick, Vicious, Dave, Jonathan, Art, Litho, the Tiki Man, Ryan, Pork Chop, Michael K, Colic Games, Peter Spiney, Anakin Solo, Smoke Jaguar 6, Desiree, Riven 6, and Andrew Cole, and Richie Rides. All you guys say thank you to Is This Live, because Is This Live is hooking you up with those memberships. You guys have been amazing with memberships. We've had over the past week, I think we've already passed the 500 new membership mark. So it's amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I'm trying to say it's week or week and a half, but just about. So it's been amazing. Thank you for the support. Thank you for coming through on the memberships. It's been great. So thank you so much, Is This Live, for supporting the channel. It really helps us a lot. Also, what helps me is laughing. And I love that Manolo Rivera dropped the joke. Hey, look, it's X-Ray Girl's dad.
Yeah.
Whenever I see X-Ray Girl say that, I just like I start crying laughing. Like I can't even respond to it. The thread. I just see that on Twitter, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so funny because it's so hilarious.
Oh yeah. Well, growing up in Chinatown, it was like we're related to everybody.
Yes. So yeah, no. So the Disney Files, I can really identify. By the way, I identify with wanting to leave a 9-to-5 job. As a guy who was in a law firm, I really thought it's going to be either I leave the law firm and I do my own thing, or I'm going to have a date with alcoholism, and some problems. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And certainly it seems like you guys have much more fun at Film Threat doing what you love, rather than sitting in the cubicle all day or sitting in the corner office all day.
Yeah, especially in the last year, realizing that McDonald's workers are making more money than I did when I was doing my 9-to-5.
Which is hilarious.
Oh my god.
Oh, they're still miserable. They still can't pay rent in LA. But so with the D-Files, I get that people reach out, because I have that happen to me as well. I have folks say, hey, look, I have a friend who works at Reedy Creek, or I've seen what you're doing with Reedy Creek. Here's some information. I see this information. My brother's a firefighter. He tells me it's completely messed up. He tells me that Disney intentionally did XYZ. I have people reach out all the time. Now, of course, I do have to take some of that with a grain of salt, because I'm not going to go out there and repeat everything. I understand there's misinformation. I understand Disney can intentionally send out misinformation, or people that just don't want us to spread false information. But when I was reading the D-Files, what I was really kind of impressed by was it really did focus objectively, and also you came to a concrete start to this story, because every story needs a start, right? And that start was the removal of John Lasseter.
Yes.
Can you explain why you decided to start there in time with the removal of John Lasseter, and not kind of before or not earlier in time? Like, why start with John Lasseter?
Yeah. Well, we've the internet has been full of all the DEI ESG talk, and so that was something very familiar to all of us. It seems to have ramped up during COVID, during Me Too, during George Floyd, and to me, so what I picked up was that the whole shift to back 10 years ago, we call it political correctness.
Yes,
and that was going on long before Iger, well into Eisner's reign. The reason we start with John Lasseter was because there was a slow movement, this slow churning within the system of Disney, that when Me Too happened, and Me Too basically emboldened a lot of people. Rightfully, Weinstein got what he deserved, but people use that to now go after other people who may have done Weinstein-like acts, or who may not have. And it seemed like it was, basically a lot of my sources were basically saying, in their minds was John Lasseter's next. And
was that an immediate thing? So let me ask you this: was that an immediate reaction? Like, as soon as Weinstein broke, people were like, "Oh, they're gonna come after Lasseter." Was that okay?
Yeah. And that was definitely the feeling. I mean, let's be real here. I would say the majority of the Walt Disney employees liked John Lasseter a lot, but he had his own kind of personal demons, and they knew it was a matter of time, and it became a matter of time. And so we talked about, in the first part there, we talked about how he was taken down, and the second part we saw the beginnings of the power shift that occurred once he was gone. So let me start with John Lasseter.
So let me to give you guys a little background in case you don't know. This is John Lasseter here. He has a penchant for Hawaiian t-shirts. He actually explains that he has hundreds of Hawaiian t-shirts. He likes them because he likes to match up whatever he's working on with the type of shirt. So like, this is a car shirt because he's working on cars, right? He also said he likes it in case he spills something. It's on there. But in case you guys don't know or don't realize, John Lasseter probably worked on everything that was big and good at Pixar. So Toy Story, right? Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Bugs Life, Finding Nemo, right? Up, Wall-E, Monsters Inc., Ratatouille, Inside Out, Brave, right? Incredibles, Finding Dory. Let's see, The Good Dinosaur, Bolt, Incredibles 2, which was actually the last thing that came out during his tenure, I believe, was Incredibles.
No, it was actually Coco. Well, okay.
Was it Coco?
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Coco was pretty much done when John left, and so his fingerprints were all over it.
Got it. Wreck-It Ralph, Big Hero 6, Moana. Let's see what else we got here. It's pretty big. Frozen and Meet the Robinsons. So he was on a lot of stuff, right? He was involved for a very, very long time in animation. Now, I want to bring up, because this is one of the things that you bring up. So John Lasseter was a hug guy. And now a lot of this brings me, kind of harkens me back to church, right? I used to go to church when I was younger. I went to church a lot. Whenever I went to church, folks would be, folks were hugging and were, greeting each other that way. And I think for a lot of folks, like at church, it was normal. And for smaller groups, it was normal. So I found this older video, and I'm trying to get the right Chrome tab here. Let's see. Oh, actually, I just got to share this window. Okay, so let's share this window here. Let me make sure this audio is boosted. So this is from Disney New Zealand. This is several years ago, and this is John Lasseter coming to work. So just so you understand, just so you see, and you can probably guess right away what the behavior, one of the behaviors is that was complained about. So let's
fun for me right now. Welcome to Pixar. And I get greeted by Luxo Jr. every day right here. His ball's getting repainted right now. He's sad and missing his ball. So welcome to Pixar. Morning, Megan. Very good. How are you?
So there we go.
Have a good day.
First hug of the day. Yep. First hug of the day there.
The first hug of the day.
And there you go. Okay.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good. How are you?
Got a good day lined up for
Okay, so really quick there, once again, he does this with everybody. He's pretty consistent. What I want to show you there was it wasn't just hugging chicks. He was hugging dudes too. He was like an equal opportunity hugger, right? Now I get that. Look, for some people that might be uncomfortable, right? And I can understand that, but there's people that shake hands in an uncomfortable way. There's people that do a lot of things that can make you particularly uncomfortable. In a legal definition, is that sexual harassment? Not really, right? There's a lack of intent there. If he was doing the hug and then maybe he was only doing it to certain women, then I'd be a little bit more suspect. Yeah. Right. If he was doing it inconsistently, I'd be a little more suspect. But trying to bring that up as a trait that led to some allegations, not buying that as much. Not buying that as much. Yeah. So from there, from going on with his behaviors, because that's one of them, what were some of the other things that ended up getting Lasseter in trouble?
Yeah. So at this point, as when all the brouhaha came about, it was on the heels of Good Dinosaur. And not Good Dinosaur not doing well. In fact, D23 is known for making announcements that don't happen, or introducing casts that never appear in the final product. And Good Dinosaur was one of those movies. It is probably I'm sure there were another failure or two at Pixar, but this was a big one. And from an executive level, let's back up just a little bit more. Disney had just bought Pixar. John Lasseter was instated as the chief creative officer of the Walt Disney Company, which meant he oversaw the creative of everything Disney. So movies, animation, Pixar, even Imagineering. He was involved in that. So theme parks. And he was basically the bottleneck of everything creative at that time. and so projects were being delayed. And some might say that's a bad thing. He was delaying things, but one of the main reasons he was the bottleneck was because he demanded excellence. He demanded creative excellence.
What,
And,
he wanted quality, Alan? Wow,
yeah.
that's just so shocking that he wanted quality. Just
I know,
so
it's
shocking.
weird. And it's not like he had a track record of quality. It's not like he had decades of proof that he knows what he's talking about. Excuse me. And the thing was that we saw John Lasseter, the hugger, the John Lasseter, the amiable, the friendly guy. But when you were working on a creative project and you had an idea to pitch, you would go to John, and John would just become stoic. You would pitch your idea, and then he would, in a very calm manner, he would tell you why your idea sucked. And
I can totally see that. Like, people think these nice guys are always teddy bears, but I mean, you don't get to that position. Look, you're not going to be the top guy if you just accept every shitty idea.
Yeah,
that's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, there has. I mean, you think about all the really creative people who've come out of Hollywood in the last 20 years, and what horrible, I'll just say horrible people. But you realize that they're more focused on the product and the quality of that product than they are about the people producing that product. And what happens is, I can think of several examples of people who, just rubbed everyone the wrong way. But again, their quality proved that, and they kind of leaned into that, I think. And I think John was that same way. And so, so just imagine a lot, you could take his criticisms one of two ways. You could take it as a learning moment, as a, hey, I have a chance to be at the feet of the master and to improve my game. Or you can take it incredibly personally. And believe me, in the work field, I did marketing before doing this. It was a very creative field. And there are people who took criticisms as a means of collaboration. And then there's people who just took it personally and felt like that I was that I didn't like them, that I didn't, I think that's how a lot of people took John's criticism as a personal attack. And and when you
would you say
on that.
Well, by the way, would you say that probably increased over time? Because to me, at least when I was in corporate America, when I was in the firm and working with corporations, I think I was seeing that happen more and more over time, where, when I first started working, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I mean, my very first jobs, people were kind of a bit more thick-skinned, right? They didn't always go and have these breakdowns at work and crying and all this stuff. But later on, and especially the later on in time, I mean, I could say the littlest thing or make the tiniest joke and it would become an incident, right?
And it would. I mean, I think that's exactly what was happening here. I mean, you kind of get excoriated by John, and then you go back to your desk and you just kind of sit and stew on it. And then it happens again, and you're kind of like feeling helpless because it questions whether you feel like you're worthy of being there. Then you feel like your job's in danger, and then the worst part is you don't have anyone to go to, and so it just kind of stews. So I mean, I understand it. It doesn't surprise me that people felt that way in that kind of environment.
Yeah, because once again, it's a guy who might make them uncomfortable because of his feedback, right? Even though to me, look, I say this to my friends, I'm like, I want my friends to be honest with me, even savage with me, because who else is going to do it? Nobody else is going to do it. And a good mentor, somebody who's a real true mentor, and I have had good mentors, they've been harsh on me. And if you look at any mentor arc in a good film, right? Any good mentor is hard on their mentee, is hard on their apprentice. They don't go easy on them because how are you going to learn unless you go through the gauntlet? When you go through the gauntlet and survive, you are stronger for it. So I think that's something I can see, though, going into the Weinstein era, it becomes, well, he's hard on me because I'm a woman. Right. Yeah. Or he's hard on me because, well, he really wants to kiss me. He really wants to go out with me. He really wants to date me. And, the old AOC, the old, the old AOC, they all just want to date me. It's like, okay, AOC. So
They do.
they do. They all do AOC. They all do. No, and I can see how somebody would internalize that and could reinterpret it as that, and certainly could level those claims. So, and I know I was reading in your article, and I want to make this clear. So the thing with Rashida Jones, like apparently something that happened there, but that didn't come from Rashida Jones. That came from like a third source that accused Rashida, like something of happening with Rashida Jones.
Okay, so I didn't delve too much into that. I only kind of went off of the Hollywood Reporter and Variety articles. But what it seemed like with Rashida Jones was that it was just as we've been talking. It was creative differences between her and John Lasseter. John was probably not happy with her take on Toy Story 4. And they kind of parted that ways. And I think because of everything, I mean, this is when the Weinstein story broke, and so people were just kind of making connections that didn't exist. And Rashida Jones did state that it had nothing to do with any impropriety in that way.
So she said that. So she said that.
She said that in it's either Hollywood Reporter or Variety. It's one of the.
So that's the equivalent of the Kate Moss comes on the stand for Johnny Depp and was like, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And then, but I think what people misinterpreted was because then immediately after that, she said, but I stand up for women who need to speak out against.
Yeah, of course, because the moment was happening, because Me Too was happening, but people took that as like a nod that something was going on, right?
It was creative differences, but was it? That's kind of the way people took it.
Right. And you can always interpret stuff like that. Like, oh, is that a dog whistle to this, or is that signaling? Are you in trouble?
Was she blinking when she said it?
Yeah, tap 3 times on the table, Rashida. Is Weinstein watching you? Like, no, I understand. Like, I understand what that moment was too, because that was the peak fervor. That was the real witch trials era of Me Too. That was before Johnny Depp, before just Jussie Smollett, which was kind of the counter current here till we get to the current day, where we're actually, I think, asking the right questions now, which is, let's see the proof.
I mean, that's the thing that bothers me the most about this is we're litigating these trials on the internet and not in a courtroom.
And by the way, many people go down like Lasseter and go down completely within a corporation. So you go down within a corporation, you get fired or severed or whatever else. You get an NDA, you can't even talk about it, right? You can't even discuss it, right? If you discuss it, you're in breach. So
I mean, I did a review, and I talked to the director of a documentary about Roger Ailes. And, he was kind of, the documentary was basically kind of the life story of Roger Ailes and delves a little bit into how he went down. But his frustration, the reason he told the story was the fact that, with everything that had gone down and with all the NDAs he had signed, Roger couldn't defend himself in public at all. But his critics and his detractors had free reign, and they could just frame stories like crazy. And it's not that, whether I believe Roger did what he did or not, that the point is that I'm hearing only one side of the truth. And one side of the truth, you're not getting the truth.
And you should be able to fully defend yourself. And you also should be able to confront your accusers. I think if you're being accused, particularly of a crime, you should be able to confront those accusers. And I think if they're making a false accusation, I think they should bear the weight of their false accusation, because it's a damning thing to say. It's a very damning thing to say, especially in the modern era where this can take down even CEOs of companies, even heads of companies, no matter how powerful or connected you are. Right, these people can come down. Mario Trujillo.
I'll just say one last thing about that Roger Ailes documentary. It's it was the people who supported Roger who had wanted this documentary to come out. The person who got the ball rolling was a fairly well-known Democrat, and I'd say about a third of the people who spoke about Roger were Democrats. So it wasn't necessarily a political piece. It wasn't an alt-right takedown of
conspiracy.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and that's what's going on here. It's like this stuff does not necessarily cleanly cut around political lines. There's stuff going on beyond that. Although some of it does have political overtones, does have political themes. It's not necessarily political. So real quick here, to catch that super chat I just pulled up. Mario Trujillo says, "Oh, how I miss the days of don't take this personally, but you suck. Here's how you can improve." Keep it up, Andrew. You know what, and Mario, I appreciated that. Whenever somebody told me that, I really value now when people, I truly value when people give me good constructive criticism, right? Now, I'm not saying, not just an ad hominem attack, like, oh, you're stupid or you're ugly or whatever. Like, no, or your mama's so fat, right? Like, no, not those jokes. Like, give me something constructive. Like, hey, Andrew, you should try to add more videos to your streams. You should try to bring up more comments. You should try to do X, Y, or Z. And you're giving a productive suggestion. I appreciate that. I really, truly do. I'm sure that if somebody wrote you and was like, hey, Alan, when you write your articles, could you cite your sources or something like that? Like if someone said that and they were genuine about it, I'm sure you would take that in the right way, right?
Yeah. I've been doing live streaming now for 2 years, and I can tell you, in the beginning, I was green. I wasn't doing very well, and it took a while for Chris and I to kind of get this rapport that we currently have now.
You got to have the mojo. You got to have the mojo, and when you find somebody special, I'll tell you this, Alan. When you find that special guy or girl, right? Or non-binary, whatever they Apache helicopter, right? We're Pixar friendly, whenever you find that person in that mojo, that's a special thing, because only some people have that back and forth where it really works for both of them, where they both feel like they're getting to talk, they're not stepped on, that they're getting to express themselves. That's a very special thing. Not everybody has that.
Yeah.
It's a streamer thing. So to talk about, I guess, the last part of part one before we get to part two. So after Lasseter left, when you talk about this like leadership vacuum, because I think the guy who followed Lasseter, if I recall, he actually was in that documentary I had pulled up a second ago, but I don't want to try to find him. But I guess you said there was a leadership vacuum. Is it just because people weren't really calling the shots on the same level? Like, can you describe like the environment or the vacuum that was after last?
Yeah. Well, let's remember this. We're still in the middle of the Me Too movement here. So, and then also, we talked about when during an all hands meeting at Disney, when they announced that John was finally going to be released, everyone was in shock. And then some female employee yelled out, "Hey, can we get a woman to run this place now?" And I would say most of the room rolled their eyes, but there are a lot of people in the room saying, "Yeah, we need to do that." And so what happened when John left, it's not that they were looking for someone, a woman or a person of color who was as creative and as much a leader as John was. It seemed like that they were just filling the seat. And at this point, over at Pixar, Pete Docter took over. Pete Docter, to his credit, was kind of a right-hand man to John, one of the prime directors that he went to, and so he took over. People told me that the reason he was chosen because he tends to play ball with leadership. And then over at Disney Animation was Jennifer Lee, who, to her credit, she had a series of successes, most notably Frozen. And so I think from a political standpoint, it looked like she was a good replacement because she had some credibility in taking over that role.
Yeah, and so there's by the way, I love the people in my chat that think this is not live, right? Yes, this is indeed live, guys. They give me flack because I do the occasional premiere, so they'll be like, "Is it live or is it memorized?" No, we're definitely live, guys.
Or are we? I don't know.
Or are we? So no, but yeah, no, there was definitely so like I said, there was definitely a change in, okay, this guy was a guy who gives pushback, has his own personality. He's able to stand his ground versus people that are more willing to play ball with Iger, play ball with the general creative direction, right? And kind of go with especially this new theme, which it seems in the wake of Iger was, okay, we're in the Me Too era, so now we have to go to the representation route. Now we have to go towards the like you said it in that you actually used the word struggle session, which I think is very, very accurate for what employees are gone through, where they essentially need to confess to their sins, right? Especially if you're me, you know.
I'll tell you,
I'm just an oppressor class over here. I have to confess to that like I'm going to church on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll tell you, during George Floyd and COVID, I was involved in one of those. I wasn't the target, but you know, a good friend of mine who runs, I'll just keep it very vague here, but runs an organization that I was a part of. I am a part of. And, you know, he the organization mistakenly, you know, went on the internet in support of Black Lives Matter. And then all their, you know, all their racial sins had been now brought to the table. People got upset, and I had to be involved in one of these struggle sessions. Ironically, I was the only person of color in the struggle session.
Well, you they counted you, right? Because I mean, sometimes that's the thing with Asians. Sometimes it counts, sometimes it doesn't. Right?
No, honestly, I'll be honest. Knowing my friends and cohorts, probably not. But ironically, I was one of the handful of people defending this person as not being racist.
which is why, once again, that's exactly why you get counted with the racists, right? They're like, you know what, Alan's in the racist category now. Put Alan in the racist category.
Exactly. But I mean, I had to witness this of basically people, and you know, it became a session that wasn't about race, and it was about why they didn't like this person as a manager. And so it just was one story after other of, you know, I wish you had done this in this case. I wish you had done that in that case. And race had never come up with it, which was the whole point of having this meeting in the first place. And it was at that point I realized these things are not about race, and it's not about bringing equality to America. It's about, you know, it's about stirring the pot, being agents of chaos, and trying to take someone down who quite literally you can't take down because that person owned the company.
right and to try to pretend, I mean, it always seems like it's the same thing, you know, whether it's you know, Pride Month and they put up the flags or whatever else. It's always, especially coming from a corporation, it's always disingenuous, right? It's always something that isn't truly there. And even with you know, the more vile kind of pushes that have come in the woke era. And I love how we went back. You actually mentioned back in the day, I almost forgot that it used to be called PC. Honestly, I've forgotten that because PC was like almost a joke. Like we could tell jokes like, haha, that's so PC, right? But woke is not a joke. I mean, it rhymes with joke, but it's very much real. And especially for the folks that are adherents to the ideology, they're true believers. It's not like, oh, stop being so politically correct.
Well, yeah, the issue is you can lose your job.
Yes.
You know, your family can be destroyed. You know, your livelihood can change drastically because of wokeness. That never happened with PC.
No, it never happened. I mean, you might get in trouble. Maybe if you go too far, there'll be an HR talk. But back in the PC era, you wouldn't be fired. And you certainly wouldn't be industry blacklisted, which can happen now, right? You're not just fired, you're industry blacklisted because your name is out there as an evil person who did a bad thing, even though you've never been convicted.
Yeah, let me piggyback on our Lasseter talk here. You know, when I wrote the first part of the D-Files on John Lasseter, I'll tell you, my intention was essentially to exonerate the man, to basically label him as a serial hugger. But the man had his demons. The man liked to drink. He owned I believe he owned a vineyard in Sonoma.
Okay, I mean, there's not a crime to own a vineyard. You know?
Yeah, not a crime. And he liked wine and he liked to drink wine. And at office parties, he partied. And
that's why. That's, by the way, Alan. That's why, from a corporate standpoint, there's no more office party. Office parties, from a legal standpoint, like cannot happen anymore because of all the potential issues when even a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah, and you know, he you know, alcohol was his friend, and you know, a lot of sources, you know, he hugging and alcohol for John Lasseter was not a good combination, and it did get creepy in some people's eyes, and I'll say rightfully so. And
I can imagine. Look, there's situations in which, look, if a drunk, like I'm a employee, I'm a young employee, let's say, and I'm a dude, right? Whatever, right? And he's drunk, and this guy's hugging me, and I'm just like, get the fuck off me! Like, you smell like red wine, whatever. I don't want you in my face. Like, don't touch me, right?
Yeah,
I can understand that.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. New employees at Pixar, they were secretly told not to bring their girlfriends to office parties. Yeah, and it was specifically for John.
Okay, so that made
sense. The rumor and the chatter about John's behavior was pervasive. Okay, yeah, just not, and that's the thing is we talked about what happened during the age of PC. We were brought into HR. We were told to kind of change our behavior or else.
Right. And you were talked down off of it. We're saying, hey, John, look. And I remember this back in the day. I actually remember this at one of the restaurants where I was a bartender. They're like, look, you guys, you can't be like going around here, like touching each other, doing all this stuff. Yeah. We were slapping each other on the ass. It was great. I mean, and we had to, make the waitresses, stuff like that. This is back in the early 2000s. I mean, this was like Wolf of Wall Street, right? But like at the bar, right? And we laughed at it. We thought it was a joke. Nowadays, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, no fucking way. They're like, we'd all be in jail. We'd all be arrested. Look, but what happened was you would get talked to. If you were the problem, you individually would be talked to. You wouldn't be fired off the bat, particularly if you're skilled, particularly if you're, a very critical employee. The first solution would not be firing you.
Yeah. Well, and here's where Disney as a company went wrong. They didn't talk to him. They didn't have these sessions with him to say, hey, you need to change your behavior. It's making people uncomfortable. They went the opposite direction. They, without question from my sources, handlers were assigned to watch John during parties to make sure that he behaved himself. That's what you call enabling at that point. And so he, let's just say that if John wasn't, didn't have a drinking problem, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. He may still be at Disney. But probably not. They'll probably find something else to fire him. Yeah, but this was definitely the weapon to use.
No, I'm sure. And look, you can't have that. You can't, like, that is a big risk, and you would need to, have that mitigated, right? So, I mean, that is one way to mitigate it, is give somebody a handler, right?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. Scorpio Black Dragon says Iger declared war. Will Peltz propose full slate? Well, I don't know yet. We'll have to see Peltz's next move. Obviously, Iger rejected the board members proposed by both Peltz and as well the other shareholder that actually proposed a very fair slate, and actually a slate that Iger should have gone with. They're less hostile than Peltz, and so they said, they had proposed 3 folks. Iger completely rejected them, so Iger only won sycophants. So we will see what happens from here. Remember, one of the big things they can do, and they haven't done this yet, is really expose some of the corruption, really out it. They've tried not to do that yet. We'll see as we get closer to March what happens. I don't think Peltz has played all his cards just yet. Ministry of Wrong Thing says, what's stopping a malicious attack from a rival company where they send in a woman to get employed by their rivals for 6 months, accuse the CEO of a bad touch, and effectively take it out on their competitors? Okay. So I will say, from a legal standpoint, this is actually something that we actually, in Florida, we had an attorney that was caught doing this. They had a really hot Colombian paralegal, and she was really hot. I saw a picture of her, super hot. I would have fallen for this, like 10 out of 10, right? So they sent her to the opposing counsel, and they found out where the opposing counsel likes to drink. They sent her there as a honey trap to, like, get all the information off of him. And they ended up, like, finding out a bunch of information on the trial, a bunch of information they shouldn't have known, right? Got his, like, personal information, also got, like, pictures of him and other stuff like that. That was in, let's say, revealing pictures of him. Eventually, that attorney was caught. This was exposed because the guy, the attorney that was on the other side, found out that this girl worked for his firm. And this attorney was severely punished by the Florida bar. I think they were suspended. They may have been completely disbarred with no hope of rebarring, but this was a real bad one. So what I'm saying is, look, if you sent in a woman and that was your employee and you sent her in, that would be real bad faith. There would be actual actions there. Now, that being said, let's say you're just a person with a political belief. And let's say you are we'll make you a far right person. We'll do it the other way.
Mhm.
You're on the far right and you're going to go into a very leftist corporation. Maybe it's woke Disney or whatever else, and try to seduce 2 shower a day Iger, right?
Mhm.
There would be nothing stopping from a politically motivated person from doing that, right? If they're not working for a company. So, or somebody who just doesn't like that person individual and wants to expose them or wants to do that, there'd be nothing stopping them other than if they didn't actually do it, you're filing a false police report potentially, right? So the same punishment for a false police report. And by the way, I want to say this very clearly from my standpoint. I absolutely do not support false accusations, regardless of the political motivation. I think it's disgusting. I think it's horrible. I don't care if you're on the right or left. I think false accusations are the worst thing ever because they erode the trust in our justice system, which is what makes America great. America is great because of rule of law. So don't agree with it, but do I think people are doing this? Perhaps, maybe. I'll just say maybe.
I can tell you, certainly not in the world of politics. That never happens.
Never happens.
Never.
It's not like China sent over several honey traps to very high-end U.S. politicians.
Yeah, never.
Never. That never happens at all.
Stories of fiction.
That never happens at all. Not at all. It's not like I've been approached by a couple of Chinese honey traps. Never mind. Mario Trujillo says, bro, I'm not hugging you. I'm just too drunk to stand. I mean, that's an excuse, but like it only look, I'll say this. When you're drunk all the time, it becomes not an excuse. If you're like, this is the Christmas party and you're drunk at the Christmas party and it's the one time a year, I'm cutting you a lot of slack, right? But if you have like office parties or monthly things and you're always the drunk guy who gets weird, you've got to like, somebody's got to approach you and be like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. If I had seen John drunk at a party, I'd probably lose a lot of respect for him at that point.
Yeah. No, I would too. I mean, if I saw that, like if I saw somebody like that, I'd be like, that's not okay. And if I was in a position where I felt like I wouldn't get fired for it, I would approach him and talk to him about it. Be like, hey man, look, I know it's you and I know you don't have bad intention. I know it's just your personality, but like, you can't do this. It's a bad look.
This is a good time to stop and change. And
right. Just like, don't do it there. Do it at home. Do it with your friends, but like not at work, bro. You gotta cut that out.
Yeah.
Mexican Iron Man says, as one of the first members and mods to the Film Threat channel, really?
Yes.
Where are you not modded? Mike, where are you not modded? Are you modded? Wait, hold on. You're definitely a mod on my channel. Yeah, you're for sure. In fact, let me make sure you're like a high enough mod. What level mod are you? Do I need to upgrade? No, you're a managing. No, you are the highest level here. You're up there with Danielle. You are like the G on my channel. Okay, I want to say great job to all Alan and Chris have done on the channel. Perfect compliment to filmthreat.com. Thank you. Thank you to you guys. Thank you to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, visit filmthreat.com. Click an ad or two. That'd be great. And
click an ad or two. Yeah. There was a comment earlier. I think I lost it. I had it pulled up, but I think I lost it. I don't know if you saw it. Making wild accusations about Chris Gore and perhaps
it's all true. It's all true.
Grab ass in the office. So all right. So moving. Oh, sorry. Wait, hold on 1 second. Rumble. I did not forget about you, Rumble. I got you. Senpai notices you. Examoon for $2 says, if someone says binger in a Discord call or in a Call of Duty lobby, it is not meant to be racist. It's just shocking. Nobody who says binger in a Discord chat will run up to a black person and say, yeah, well, okay, that's fair enough. Barack Obama was the woman in the Obama White House. Okay, not really on point, but there you go.
Not sure that
not really relevant, but I'll read your super chat. I mean, and whether Michelle Obama is a man or woman is up for you guys to decide. That's personal opinion, really. Gunshogi 437 says every single professional kitchen where Me Too waiting to happen. Yes, but the dudes only did it to other dudes for the lulz. It was locker room. That's how it was back when I was a bartender and a waiter in 2004. Like we were just fucking around. Nobody was being serious about that shit, and the girls were in on it too. And everybody was doing that. It was a joke. Nobody took it seriously. Nobody was like, oh my god, you sent me in the end. Me. No, that was none of that. But that's a different day. That was 2004, 2005, 6, much different time than 2024.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been doing improv comedy for almost 30 years now, and I can tell you, early on in the 90s, the green room was you know, as a young Christian man at that point in my life, I was like, oh my god, this is not. And I'll be honest, you know, as much as we're walking on eggshells, I kind of like the laid back you know, behavior we have now, the kind of a little more civil behavior, but again, you are walking on eggshells because you say something wrong and that's it. Yeah.
I'll say it, Alan. I'll take a cup check every a monthly cup check over walking on eggshells. Like if I have to pick one, like freedom of speech, but like somebody's gonna try to punch me in the dick every once in a while. Right. And by the way, I would probably do it back to them. Like, or I'm walking on eggshells. I'll take one because at least one is more free.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I in part 3, I'm still kind of putting it together and formulating it, but it's this idea of how this new toxic environment is killing creativity.
Yes,
and we'll get into a lot of that.
Well, you if you've done comedy, you know the point of comedy is to be able to push boundaries.
Yeah,
if you are easily offended, the boundary cannot be pushed. Because every time you go to push the boundary, you're offending somebody, and there's going to be a lawsuit. You're going to get fired. You're going to get, you know, whatever else thrown out. You cannot tell a joke. You cannot even propose an idea because the fact that you propose that idea makes you an evil person.
Yeah. Wasn't there a lawsuit? Was it Friends that the writer's room that that someone felt that the discussion of scripts and really pushing those boundaries to an extreme extent was considered harassment or something like that, and they got sued.
I think that might have been Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a friend. It was Friends.
Yeah.
She was a writer's assistant.
Yeah.
So she felt the environment. It was a hostile work environment.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like you're saying, comedy, you know, there sometimes you need to cross the line in order to know where the line is. And then back up.
Yes. How do you know where the line is unless you cross a little bit? You know what? You're like, you tell the Gilbert Gottfried, the now famous Gilbert Gottfried 9/11 joke. And it's like, well, that was too far, right? You know, and it's like, it wasn't fun, and it wasn't funny, but I can say, look, he's a comedian because he tried to find where the line was. Yeah. He crossed it. He definitely crossed it. But I'm not going to say cancel him. I'm going to say, dude, that wasn't good. That was over the line. You need to check yourself back in. But that doesn't mean you get canceled or sued or have any legal or financial repercussions other than people just don't like it. Right. Like that's okay. You don't have to like what people say, or what the joke is, you know, just say, okay, that one was too much. So let me continue here. So the second part, so now we're shifting over to part 2, the Great Mouse Reset of the D-Files. Now this one was interesting. So this is after Lasseter is out. I believe it was a particular work that became like kind of the symbol of problematic at Pixar.
Yes. Well, this is Disney actually.
Sorry, Disney.
Yeah. I mean,
was it not? Did they not have? That wasn't a collaboration.
Well, I'm sorry. No. So, what are you referring to? Maybe I'm
Raya. We're going to talk about Raya.
Yeah. So, at this point, I think what was happening was, you know, Disney Animation and Pixar were like Touchstone and Disney Features. Yeah. Two separate companies. They kind of had their own paths to go down, and John was overseeing both paths. So Raya is a Walt Disney animation project, not a Pixar project.
Okay, got it. Yes,
Coco. They're coming off of Coco at that point, so that's what Pixar was working on.
Okay, and so in case you guys don't know, and I definitely want to rant on this a little bit, guys. So definitely bear with me because I'm going to get a little worked up over this. But this is Raya and the Last Dragon. Okay, so and as you guys know, I currently am living in Bangkok, Thailand. I've been in Asia for 4 years now, but I've been here for over a year. So of course, Raya, the Last Dragon. was supposed to be the first Southeast Asian inspired Disney film, right? It was going to be their Southeast Asian princess. Yes. Now, a lot of interesting things happened here, and we'll get into the specifics of the writers. But one thing I can just say with the casting, before we get into like the elements and the plot elements and everything else, but one thing that a lot of people pointed out right away with the casting was the casting for something that's supposed to be Southeast Asian, ended up being largely East Asian. We'll talk about the directors and the writers and stuff like that. But I mean, other than Kelly Marie Tran, who's Vietnamese, or rather, American Vietnamese, right? Pretty much everybody else is Chinese, Korean, some form of East Asian. And then you got Alan Tudyk, right?
Let's just say Kelly Marie Tran came in later in the process. They had already cast another person to play Raya.
And they brought her in later because they're like, all right, we need at least like one Southeast Asian up in here.
And she's kind of coming in off of all the Star Wars stuff at that point.
Right. So they had to like apologize for her role as Rose Tico and give her Raya. It's no. We love her. We're going to give her Raya, and then you can see, obviously you got like Awkwafina here, Daniel Kim, Benedict Wong, Gemma Chan. These are all people that a lot of Hong Kong in there, by the way. All folks, and then obviously South Korea as well. All folks who are East Asian, and of course this is supposed to be Southeast Asian. Now, I know that for some people that may not be a big difference, but if you are in Asia, that is a huge difference. In fact, one of the bigger differences is that this movie was supposed to represent a merger of really 5 cultures. So it was supposed to be Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, which is traditionally-ish Southeast Asia. Sometimes people will throw in Philippines, and you got like Brunei in there and other places in the Southeast Asia. Myanmar certainly. But they were trying to merge all of these things. But one of the hard things when you're merging something is you end up trying to be multicultural and you end up not having much there. In fact, I like this quote. This is from the Courier. This is a really great article. But it points out that they try to draw common themes, and pretty much the only common themes that cut across there are rice, curry, and dragons, which to me is pretty much the most.
They should have added chopsticks for me.
And chopsticks. It's pretty much the most racist shit you can get. Like, honestly, that's pretty up there. It's like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do rice, we're gonna do curry, and we're gonna do that. And also, she's got a rice patty hat because they've all got that, right? So she's got that, right? Probably the most racist shit that I can, like. It's up there. It's pretty up there. They got durian. So it ended up trying to please everybody, and to me, it doesn't really hit in any of the boxes. But can you talk a little bit, Alan, for the D-Files in terms of the writers, right? They shift from the acolytes of Lasseter, who's now on the out, into the woke brigade.
Okay, so let me first off by saying, if it sounds like I'm censoring myself, I'll be. I need to think. I have sources who got me a lot of inside information about Raya itself. So most facts I'm going to give you will be based on what's in Wikipedia. But I can kind of confirm things and kind of give you a little bit of flavor of what was happening. But this was John Lasseter's last project that he kind of had bare fingerprints on. At this point, the directors was Paul Briggs and Dean Wellen. Lasseter guys, and then the writer was Adele Lim, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians. Wrote the screenplay for Crazy Rich Asians,
which wildly successful,
and also Malaysian-born Chinese.
And I will, so she's Malaysian-born Chinese. So let me say, she did an excellent job, and of course, you've seen Crazy Rich Asians, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
and I of course, right, of course,
yeah.
but I think that movie is good, and I've seen it too. One of the reasons I like the movie, I think everybody likes the movie, is because it focuses very specifically on Singapore. And I think when you focus especially on Singapore, and then a little bit about the American experience, a little bit there, but really it's about Singapore. And then you get a lot of Malaysian culture through Singapore, because of course Singapore in its history was part of Malaysia. Malaysian culture influences Singapore greatly, right? Malaysian Chinese are both in Kuala Lumpur as well as in Singapore. In fact, I think Kuala Lumpur will be the next Singapore. But that said, it focuses so closely on that, and her knowledge as a Malaysian Chinese really informs that as a specific piece. Crazy Rich Asians is specifically about Singapore, and that's why it's powerful. Whereas Raya is not really about anything. It's not about Malaysia or Thai folklore or Vietnamese folklore, Cambodian, Laos. It's this sort of melting pot where, you know, the river is supposed to be the Mekong, but not really. And it doesn't really hit anywhere. And then beyond that, they took Lim, and from what I understand, they sidelined her, correct?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say that they sidelined her, but yeah, actually, I'll just say it at that.
Okay, they wouldn't say they sidelined her, and I know you're being careful.
Yeah, I'll be careful, because if I get too specific, it could reveal people and
could reveal sources. But let's say that they brought in other writers, and they certainly brought in a director as well.
So so this is essentially, so we're talking the Great Reset here.
Yes.
So the trio is basically Lasseter's people, and at this point where Raya was in the development was story and storyboarding. So nothing's been animated at this point. They're kind of, you know, doing what they normally do is they'll take the storyboards, they'll kind of, you know, animate it a little bit and kind of give you a super rough copy of what the movie should look like. And they were in the process of doing that at the time John left. And what happened was basically, I think when Lee took over, she needed to get her people in, which quite frankly, you hear a lot in Hollywood. You know, a new studio head comes in, projects of the old studio are sidelined, and then the new pet projects of that new lead is. In this case, she brings in people that you know, to bring fresh perspective to it. And so Paul Briggs and Dean Wellen were basically what I was told was it felt like that they were, you know, that she was gunning for them and tried to get them to either quit or fired. Couldn't do that, so they took Paul took a co-director position, and Dean went on to do a Disney Plus series. And then they brought in, Lee brings in Carlos Lopez Estrada, who I'm just going to guess this Mexican-born director does not have any Southeast Asian roots.
I'm gonna go out there on a limb and say he probably doesn't know Southeast Asian lore. That's probably not his thing.
Yeah. You know, and quite frankly, pretty much I think Paul Briggs and Dean Wellen didn't either, and so that was really up to the writer to do that.
Right.
But
and from what I understand, by the way, he didn't really have much experience outside of this movie, and I think your article says I think after this he went back to directing music videos.
Yeah, he started off as a music video director. He directed Blind Spotting, which was a well-received, critically acclaimed feature film. He got a DGA nomination. I'm pretty sure all of that led Lee to hire him, to say, okay, let's bring in a new voice. And you know, and the thing is that directing live action and directing animation are two completely things. And they brought in Don Hall, you know, stalwart Disney director, to give him on-the-job training. I don't know how much influence he had on the final project, but you know, I'm pretty sure he was there to make sure that the animation process continued under that direction. And then, you know, I don't know why he basically left Hollywood and went back to directing music videos, but that's kind of what happened as a result of that. He
probably because I mean the reception here, from what I looked at the numbers, this raked in something worldwide of 130 million. By the way, that's revenue, not profit. I always love mentioning that that revenue and profit are completely divorced, because you know, especially on worldwide, you're surrendering 50% of that locally. So just give 50% of that up, right?
Let me defend Disney in this statistic for a moment.
Sure.
Raya was the first feature from Disney to come back to theaters after COVID.
So So that was rough. That was, yes, that's definitely something you can give them a little bit of credit for. It was the first one coming off COVID. You can give it the COVID, the COVID warning or whatever else it was.
Yeah, because when I saw it in theaters, the entire movie theater was practically empty, and we were all forced to wear masks while watching Raya and any movie.
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, I'm not. It's like I'm not going to the theaters, and that's also why they did this one on Disney Plus as well, right? I think this one was
it
one
I'm wondering if it. Yeah, it might have because. Yeah, you're probably right. But I do remember. I'm such a theater buff that my daughter and I.
You wouldn't dare.
Yeah, we had to see it in the theater, and look, we had certain opinions about COVID. And our reactions.
So hold on, you went with your daughter, right? So how old was your daughter at the time when she saw Raya?
Oh gosh, she's like 12, 13 maybe.
So okay, but she should have been in the prime audience for it, right? So like, what did she think of the movie?
She didn't like it.
She didn't like it. Okay. Yeah,
and look, and it's I don't, it's kind of nice to see an Asian film.
Sure,
but when kids are that young, they're not thinking about identity politics or seeing themselves in movies. They're more interested in seeing a good story, a story that engages them. And Raya didn't have that.
And when I read from even people that were from the woke brigade, like the woke brigade that was like, I love strong females, but this sucked because the plot was horrible. The MacGuffin made no sense. The villains were like not even sure how they defeated the villains. Like the story was kind of incoherent. And beyond all that, right, it wasn't something where even when you're doing the identity politics, like I said, someone could not see their own folklore in that because it wasn't anybody's folklore. So it wasn't like, for example, if you were doing Mulan or Aladdin, right? I mean, I remember all of my, my Middle Eastern friends that, when they saw Aladdin, they could see things that they were like, oh yeah, that's a thing, right? And they could call back to that. But there wasn't really much in there that folks can identify with, particularly in the modern day.
It was really interesting because the same daughter was in I was driving her to an acting class, and during the drive, out of nowhere, she screams, "I miss Disney romance," because she just saw a TikTok of a montage of Disney romantic moments, and she goes, "I miss that," because with the exception of Elemental, we haven't seen romance in a Disney, Pixar, anything for a very long time.
Wasn't Elemental the one where in Elemental, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that the gender fluid character or whatever it was?
No.
Which one is that? That's the newer one.
I'll defend Elemental here. It's a teen romance. A boy and a girl. And they do have they have LGBT relatives that appear at a
sure.
dinner. And that's pretty much as far as that one went. But
it didn't go too far.
Yeah, I believe the reason Elemental didn't do well beginning at the box office, but burned very well over time was the fact that it was basically a teen romance, and that teen romances, as good as they are, it's a limited audience, and that limited audience loved the movie so much that they kept going back, and they gave that movie legs at the box office.
I do think that one still lost money though, if I'm correct.
It was the best performing Disney movie for a very long time.
Yeah,
well,
best of the worst.
I'll say that it just shows that they're not completely lost. If they had maybe thought a little bit more about the story, if they had a creative genius behind it, kind of pushing certain elements of that story, it would have done a lot better.
That sounds fair enough.
Yeah.
Jonas says Peltz officially controls more than 10% of Disney. You guys are invited to TPP live at noon today. Also, Alan, I like the haircut. Unfortunately, I do have to sleep at some point. I mean, it's almost midnight here, bro. But that being said, I do appreciate the invite another time, Jonas. And shout out that I'll be covering more on Peltz stuff, obviously coming in the days in the future. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. I've been following you and TPP about all this Disney board and Reedy Creek stuff, so it's been exciting.
And I am on it because there's always more twists and turns. They actually just got in 2 new lawyers, guys. I'll do a stream tomorrow on all that. as well as on the Disney dating app, which, well, that's a tomorrow topic. That's not a today topic. But there's new updates, and the crazy thing about Disney is they keep getting in these legal troubles, so it's updates for me pretty much daily. And by the way, if you guys like those updates, make sure you smash the like button. We have 700 people watching on YouTube and only 361 likes. So let's get that up to 450. And then over there on Rumble, I'm going to give a shout out. We had over 1,000. We still have 700 over there. So please smash the like button on Rumble. So on both platforms, we're doing well. Almost hitting 2K mark here, which is fantastic. One Punch Man Tolkien fan says, Andrew, have you ever lived in Cambodia before? I have not lived in Cambodia before. I have been to Cambodia before. Now, I want to go there for a longer period of time. I was only there for 24 hours. So, I mean, I was there. I've got the visa and my passport to show and all that. But I want to go for a longer period of time, get a little bit out of Phnom Penh, although I was chiefly in Phnom Penh. I do plan to mostly be in Phnom Penh. But I want to see it a little bit. I mean, some folks say it's like Thailand was like 30, 40 years ago. So, I definitely check that out.
My wife was there for 2 weeks, and she told me it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world.
Awesome. Also on my list is I'm going to travel a little bit more to the Philippines. I definitely need to take a trip to Hanoi. That's on my list. So I've got a lot of checks off this checks to check mark this year. Last year I was so busy moving. I moved from Korea to Thailand last year. So that was a big thing. And I had a lot of stuff to do in Japan for work. So I definitely am going to be doing more traveling this year, and hopefully sharing it with all you guys. My other channel, my travel channel, is Go East Gentlemen, where I talk about visas and living abroad. You can go find that on my other channel, Go East Gentlemen. But moving back to this,
yes, we're talking about Adele Lim,
with Adele Lim. Obviously, she's talented, and it seems like there were other folks brought on. There was also another writer brought on. I believe it was Ki Nguyen, right?
Yeah.
And also Paul Briggs, I see listed as a writer.
No. Okay. So Paul, let's see. Paul, I think, was part of Initial Story, but I don't. He may have gotten the credit, but I know he definitely wasn't involved at that point.
So they removed him intentionally.
They made him co-director. They demoted him to co-director.
Is that a demotion? Is going from writer to co-director? Is that a demotion?
No. Actually, Paul Briggs was the original director, co-director. And then they demoted him to he was the original director, and then they demoted him to co-director, because I still think they needed someone with animation background to be in the direction, kind of along with Don Hall.
So they wanted to get the ESG points with Estrada, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted to they had needed experience, so Briggs is there. And then it seems like they played it the same way. And then with Adele Lim, that kind of gave them the credibility because she's coming off Crazy Rich Asians.
I didn't research any of the ESG stuff, so I'll leave that expertise to you. But
no, I'm saying, like, at that point, because in your article you do talk about, like, there was an idea within Pixar, or rather Disney, of achieving more of an equitable solution. We're talking about, like, we're trying to go towards equity, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I went through some of the interviews from Raya.
Was it the WIA you talk about, right?
Right, but in terms of, I mean, this is the interesting thing, because the filmmakers did a series of interviews to promote Raya, and a lot of what they said are basically positive spins as to what ultimately happened. For example, we wanted to have 50-50 work environment, men and women on Raya. How they got there is a whole other thing. But the idea that 50-50, that sounds pretty good. But the problem is there wasn't enough women within Disney itself to make it 50-50. And so, we could talk about that further down.
Well, that's like the pilot problem, right? And I just showed that clip from the airline pilot, the CEO of United, right, who came out and said we want to make it so it's less white men in the cockpit, right? We want to make it equitable with all this stuff. Well, if the folks aren't qualified for the job, if they don't have their pilot's license, it's kind of hard to put him there, right? If you want to, right? So I mean, it's the same thing with like animators, right, or whatever else, right? If they don't exist, then it's like, well, where are we going to get them from? And by the way, I see this in the legal field where you'll be out in the middle of Kansas and they'll be like, well, we want to make sure that our population of lawyers is 50% African American and 40% Hispanic. I'm like, we're in Kansas, like, where are you getting these demographics, right? It's very weird. But then I saw your article here, and this quote was the one that I was really thinking of from WIA, which Disney Animation did go out of its norm in hiring the help of WIA, an advocacy group created in 1993. Their mission states, "We envision a world in which people of all gender identities share fully in the creation, production, and rewards of animation." With Raya the Last Dragon, that aggressive push for gender equity and to radically transform an industry starts now. That is, that's pretty bold.
Well, here's an interesting thing about that part of my story. I had one person reach out to me about WIA who wasn't working there, but wanted to get into animation as a woman, as a POC woman. And she basically had a very tense discussion with the leader of that organization, but she was my only source, and I was like, I if I can't corroborate any of this, I can't run with this WIA piece. And so I literally 2 days ago I had to reach out to a bunch of people saying, what do you know about this organization? And everyone was telling me, well, I know the head of it and she seems like a really nice person. And then suddenly an emergency email showed up out of, as I was doing this, and it's like, oh, you have no idea. And they just gave me a basic glimpse as to what the influence that this organization has within Disney. And it was like, yes. And so that last half was written on the fly. And from what I'm being told by my sources, there may be more to come. And we'll see what we can use.
Yeah. So that quote here, our source told us that she expressed concerns about the mission of WOA. She found herself blacklisted from the industry. So this is what I would see before I was talking about this. And I want to be very clear. This is something that's different with PC, right? Versus woke. With PC, you didn't get blacklisted from the industry, but now with woke and particularly with, like, for example, WIA, because it's an advocacy group, it's not just a Disney group. If you piss them off, you're getting blacklisted from the entire animation industry because they're going to say you're anti-woman, right? There's going to be going, don't hire this person, or just threaten you, saying, look, if you hire this woman, we're going to come out and pillory your organization as misogynistic. Because you hired this woman, right? We're just going to come out there and not support you. We're going to cause trouble for you, right?
Look, as an Asian man growing up in the 80s and 90s, as much as I didn't like affirmative action, I understood the initial tenets of affirmative action, which was, if it's a choice between two people who are equal value, one's white, one's black, take the chance on the black candidate. And that's what this whole thing about equality was supposed to be. It was about equal access to opportunities. It was about the idea that a white dominated field, you would bring in other races, other ethnic minorities, to kind of even things out. And the ideal was that you train everyone to have the same skill set to be, excellent at that job. These organizations claim to do that, but what they really are gatekeepers. It's like, oh, you're a female animator. We can get you a job. We can get you a job real easy at Disney. You can work on a Disney project, but you've got to toe the line. This is the real reason you're there, and it's not animation.
It's not animation. It's there for propaganda, and that's the point, right? It's like your job is to advance this. It's like they're making a movie. Put this in it. Make sure you put. And Raya had so many. I mean, if you go through and there's videos on the internet, I'm not even going to go in here. People say, oh, it's the first trans voice actor. And they added in these elements. They, queer coded Raya, so they made it so that some of her relationships could be interpreted as lesbian. And they made sure they what is it? Took a stand against masculinity, right? Because that's such an evil thing, despite the fact that, by the way, and I can say this sitting in Southeast Asia, people don't hate men, right? I mean, like trying to project a feminist message on a region that does not have these issues where there's this hatred of men, or this view that men can do nothing good and that the only influence of a man is bad. That's absolutely a tourist view and a Western view that's being imposed upon this area from the outside, right? It's definitely not an internal feeling. And everybody I speak to who's here and who lives here, who's from here, even when I was in East Asia, when I was in Korea, it's like, no, they like men, right? They like they have dads they like, they have granddads they like, they have male mentors. That same pervasive attitude is not the same. So I can see how WIA is like, no, let's put this in here, right? Let's make this a thing when it really is not.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Chris Gore says, great interview, Andrew. Alan, when is part 3 of the D files dropping? And can you give us a preview? Hail Legal Mindset. Love you, brother. Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna bank this one real quick because I wanna that's like a segue over there.
Yeah, and I don't know how Chris Gore doesn't know that. So
yeah, Chris, come on, you don't know how to segue, man? Like, are you even in the? Do you even stream, bro? Like, do you even stream? Like, what do you do? Like, and also call me maybe. You got to. No, I'll definitely. I look forward to having Chris on the channel as well. Anytime I come on a channel, I like to have folks in. So I look forward to having Chris on to talk about a lot of stuff. I mean, I know we'll have a lot of stuff in the film industry, and he's got so much experience to bring to the table, and so many like just stories, right? Which is what you've been dealing with, is stories coming from people. So with this young lady, did she? I guess I don't want you to expose. I want you to expose that. Can you say whether or not she was ultimately in trouble with the WIA or not? Did she end up navigating that safely? Can you say that? Is that too much?
I mean, I think let's just say conclusions will not surprise you.
Okay, got it.
Well, here's the thing, and I think ultimately, and this is what I told her, was that what's sad is that Disney used to be the dream.
Yes.
Look, my first interview out of college was with Walt Disney Studios. I wanted to work there. And
I thought about doing the college program. I remember when that was. I mean, I thought about it, and I'm from Florida. I grew up loving Disney. I love going to Disney.
Yeah.
I have so much good nostalgia with Disney. So much.
I live near Anaheim, so I'm right there too. I dreamed for a very long time about working at Disney. I know a lot of artists who want to be animators, storyboard artists, background artists for Disney. That was the dream. And what's happening now is that dream is dying. That dream is being killed in the minds of a lot of people. A lot of people who worked at the Walt Disney Company, at Disney Animation, hate their jobs. And the saddest thing is that a lot of them are getting soured to the industry altogether. This is not Disney alone. This is every other studio for the most part. And this thing is happening across the entire industry, and people who once loved animation now hate animation and are moving on. And that's the saddest thing. You have great veterans that used to work at Disney. They saw the writing of the wall and they left. And this is what's going on at Disney. It's basically, it's like they're flooding in a whole bunch of new people for some reason who are not qualified. And it is infecting the quality of that. I know it's weird.
It's weird that like when you flood in a bunch of inexperienced people and there's no explicable reason other than ESG, that the quality goes down. That's so odd that you can't just flood something with unqualified people and get good stuff. It's really weird. It's really weird.
So what happened with Raya was they went into Disney Animation. They got all the women and all the POC, all the Asian animators. I know I hate the term. I hate the term so much.
The POC, because it's like, once again, like I said, it's always very strategic because a lot of times it'll be like, well, they were white, and it's like, well, wait a second, no, this person's. In fact, they're calling Hispanic white strategically too, as well.
Yeah.
When they're more
weird how this evolution occurs.
It's very odd. It's very odd. And once again, I actually, because we talk about growing up, I grew up in South Florida, and specifically in Miami. I was the only non-Jewish white person in my class at high school. I'm not even kidding. Like, there was nobody else. My class was 60 people. I was the only non-Jewish white person in my class, right? So like, to me, it was always very odd. It was like, wait a second, like, I'm the minority here. Shouldn't I get an advantage, hiring an advantage in this environment? Because like, do I get some representation here? Do we need some like people who have only English as a language and no Spanish? But that being said, I get the argument theoretically you brought up earlier about affirmative action, especially like back in the day. Like, okay, if there's two candidates who are equally qualified, but to me, that was always a policy decision. And that was always, as a company, why don't we do the right thing and give somebody a chance? Not something that's legislated and not something that's forced or coerced.
Absolutely.
Because if it's not forced or coerced or legislated, then what I think is, if I see a female, for example, if I saw a female pilot back in the day, I actually thought she was good, because then she would have had to come up through the merit system. Yeah. But if I see a female pilot now, I'm like, please rebook me on a different airline. Because I mean, I'm just like, no, I mean, there's no way that I'm going to believe in the modern era that people are selected purely on skill, especially after CEO says something. I mean, in this case, Disney, right? So if Disney says, okay, we're putting this person here, and what they mention about them is their gender, race, sexual identity or orientation or proclivity, right? As the first thing they mention about them. The most recent being Charmin in the Star Wars debacle. This is the first woman to direct a Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's not the criteria I care about. What I care about is, what has she directed? Has it been good? And does she know about this area? And to me, when I look at Charmin, I think Charmin is no different than Carlos, right? Charmin has a lot of documentary experience, but documentary. I don't know what documentary. What is that? I'm not like even speaking English. Or sorry, guys, for my English. I shame my ancestor. She's done a lot of documentaries on the Middle East, on Afghanistan, Pakistan, you know, those sort of places, but she hasn't directed a sci-fi.
Yeah.
You know,
a heavy
so
budget CG laden Star Wars movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like with Carlos, it's like, yeah, the guy's done music videos and he probably was awesome at doing music videos. And he did some other movies and some indie movies, smaller movies, but doing an animation is not what he did. And I think you see these trends and you're like, well, wouldn't an adult in the room speak up, you know, an adult, and say, hey, maybe we should hire somebody with some skill in the area, like a little bit.
Well, the thing about Key and Adele was, you know, Adele was an established screenwriter. She had a proven talent. She had a $200 and almost $40 million movie under her belt. And she was saddled up with a writer who had done a couple episodes of television. He was mostly a staff writer, and he did a couple of episodes. I mean, can you imagine taking someone who wrote a couple of episodes of an animation series and then give her a Marvel television series? I mean, so that was the thing was, Adele was the diversity choice there. And for some reason she was seen as a Lasseter person, and they needed one of Lee's people had to come in, and that was Key. And let's look at the results now. Adele is no longer with the Walt Disney Company. She just made her first movie, Joyride, did moderately well. And Key went on to write and direct. Sorry? Oh.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see it. I love Joyride. It was great.
Oh, okay.
But Key then went on to write and direct Strange World. And Strange World is honestly, it's what the impression I got with Strange World was that finally all the veterans at Disney are gone. And now
didn't that completely tank? Am I wrong or right that Strange World tanked pretty hard?
It was the Thanksgiving release. I went to my theater on Thanksgiving to see it. It was me. Behind me was a grandfather and his grandson. The grandson was talking the entire time, and I was so grateful that he was there to distract me from that movie. And it was here's what the grandfather did, but you know, there's a LGBT gay romance in the movie. Every time scenes like that were started, the grandfather would start talking to his grandson to distract him from what was going on.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
But,
actually funny. That reminds me of my dad. Like he would take me to movies, and whenever when I was a kid, right, and it's like when I was younger, whenever there was a sex scene, he would just like a hand would just come over, and he would just go like this, right? Like that's such a dad move too.
Oh, my
like,
dad
he'd be
kicked me out of the room. He goes, "You're not watching this movie."
Yeah, no. We're at the theater, right? Like we're already in. We got
Well,
popcorn.
he wouldn't
we're
take me
sitting
to
down.
the movies. I couldn't get in.
Well, I always wonder with my dad, and I he passed away, so I can't ask him. But I always, this is a question I want to ask. It's like, did you go because you knew that scene was in the movie, and you were like, or did you not know? Like, did you know or not know, Dad? I'm zero judgment either way. Can you tell me the honest answer?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Here's how I saw my first rated R movie in a theater. It was back in the day of the double feature, and if it was a movie paired up with a PG movie, then I could get in and then stay for the rated R movie. So it was Saturday Night Fever. That was the first rated R movie I saw.
You tricky man, Alan. You tricky wicked there, staying for the double feature. Oh God. Yeah. So Ministry of Wrong Think. I forgot to get this one earlier. Hold up. 50-50 representation equals 100%. This means Disney affirms there's only two genders.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Well, if you go to, and I quoted it in the article. If you go to their the WIA website, it's they're there to represent female representative people and non-binaries.
Hold on, women in animation.
Yeah, let me get the right quote. It's on the last page of my.
It's on their website. It's their mission, right? Under their mission,
it's
probably.
in their mission, and I quoted it directly. Let me.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull this up and not get like flagged. For the one funny thing about being abroad is that sometimes some stuff does not want to pull up. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Let's pull this up real quick. So we got it's a WIA, Women in Animation, right? Mm-hmm. So our mission is to, and let me zoom in here. Our mission is we bring together the global animation community to empower and advocate the people of underrepresented gender identities in art, technology, production, and business of animation, inspiring excellence and justice in all facets. Okay, so right here they say underrepresented. Then hold on, our vision. We envision a world in which people of all gender identities share fully in creative production.
Yeah, I quoted that, but I'm not sure it's on this page, but they do.
We recognize gender as a non-binary and intersects with every other aspect.
One phrase I quoted was female identifying and non-binary people.
Very, very, very interesting. Female identifying and non-binary. Yeah.
Ladies love that term.
Once again, this is how those conferences, we had that come up really recently, where there was a conference, I believe it was a coding, I forget, it may have been engineering, where it was like a women's STEM sort of recruiting, and all guys showed up because they allowed non-binary.
Yeah.
So
no, guys didn't show up, non-binary showed up.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to be canceled now. It's over, guys. It's the last legal.
I know.
Mindset.
I'm sorry I had to correct you.
Nice knowing you. It's been nice knowing you. I'm now canceled. There we go. Sorry, guys. RIP. Legal mindset.
I know.
No, but seriously,
I feel unsafe at the moment. I'm sorry.
You want a hug, Alan? You want a hug? Let's come in. Bring it in, buddy. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. So. No, but like once again, this sort of like clown world stuff is going to continue to happen as things progress, right? And as things go on, I mean, I think people are going to get savvy to it and say, "Oh, well, if that's the game we're playing, then you represent me. I'm now non-binary. I'm a masculine presenting transgender lesbian."
Yeah.
And if you think that out very closely,
it's true.
It's true. There's nothing about that that's not wrong. Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, your daughter is here in the chat.
Hey.
X-Ray Girl says, two of my favorite people. X-Ray Girl, we talked earlier about how Alan, your dad, brought you to Raya and you did not like it. So yeah.
You let your people down. You brought dishonor to our family.
You brought dishonor to his family. Okay, thank you. I'll do it. Hold on. And I don't know, Alan, have you seen my emoji for my like audio avatar?
I don't think so. No.
I've got two. Let me stop my camera real quick. Here's number one. And hold on, let me edit to number two here. And then here's number two. So,
oh my gosh.
We are fully we're fully canceled over here in Asia.
This is something I have to believe, but I think everyone outside of North America thinks we're crazy.
They think it's crazy. In fact, I have a clip. It's on my channel a little while back about in Japan when they're talking about DEI and CRT.
Mm-hmm.
There's a school board where they talk about it and they're laughing. They're laughing because they think it's crazy. They're like, no way. People ask me this here too. They're like, do people really believe this?
Yeah.
I'm like,
we become the laughing stock of the world.
They think that we're joking. They're like, no, that's not real, right? They think it's like a meme on the internet. And I'm like,
yeah.
No, this is like in major corporations. They're like, no, you're not serious. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to people overseas, and it's like they can't believe why we're so obsessed with race in America.
We're not. I mean, you know what's the funny thing? You know what's I think real Americans aren't. I think it's a segment that is pushing that, a specific segment that's pushing that.
It's the vocal minority that they're seeing.
That wedges it out, but like I said, when I grew up, I had more, like, my sorting of friends was like, I hung out with the nerds. I don't care what race or language they spoke, whatever. Like, if you wanted to go play GoldenEye, I'm down. Like, let's go play GoldenEye or Mario Kart, whatever else. We were playing Magic the Gathering, whatever else we were doing. Like, you don't even need to know English for that, right? Yeah. People were playing with Brazilian cards, and I knew what the card was, right? So I would just play with them. Like, I didn't grow up thinking that way. It was only when I became an adult that people started forcing that and like forcing that paradigm upon me. And to me, I was just like, as an adult, I'm like, fuck you. That's just not my experience growing up or with the world or with people. Right. Mm-hmm. It's just not a useful frame of, frame of, I mean,
growing up in Southern California, I grew up in a very predominantly white community. I was one of 3 Asians, one of 5 minorities at my school, graduating even that way. And I hate to say it, but white people were pretty nice to me.
No, they didn't beat you up. They didn't demand you deliver them duck sauce, Alan. Like they weren't.
I know. And the times I got bullied, it wasn't because I was Asian. It was because they were assholes. And
which is 100% true. It's because this guy was a dick. It wasn't because
it wasn't me that he was bullying. It wasn't only me. And you know, people say, well, you know, like the word that armor makes. How many times were you called that? I go, I kept thinking back. I'm to the age of 18. I may have heard the term only twice, and it was never at school. I mean, that's weird how what the 80s and 90s were like for me.
Yeah, and I think the 80s and 90s were mostly like that for a lot of people. They were like that for me. I grew up in the 90s. None of this, I mean, there were jokes, but like they were always clearly a joke. Like nobody thought it was serious, right? The first time I actually, like the one time I almost got offended, but then I laughed at it was I was in college and someone, they thought I was Russian. So they're like, and they were trying to call me a communist, which I took serious offense to. They're like, as my Russian comrade here is arguing, because we were doing a debate. And I was like, this motherfucker. Right. Like, and that was like the first time, but then I laughed about it because I'm like, okay, it's kind of funny. Like, and I did have to support, like, we were in a Cuban politics class and it was like supporting one position of the Cuban party versus another. So it's a debate. So I get that he was trying to call me a communist. It was actually kind of funny in retrospect.
Well, it's weird.
Like, it wasn't an issue.
It's weird you mentioned college because I didn't understand white racism until I got to college. And I didn't understand how bad it was. And you know, I know. And that's what my parents spent money on. And the other thing was, you know, LA it was became a very diverse city over my lifetime.
Super diverse now. I mean, no, it's like, I remember, I mean, one of my girlfriends for a long time, she was Persian, and she, you know, so like, and I remember going there and go like, oh, there's Armenians here, I grew up here, went to school with these people. I mean, you know, and I, you know, I'll going to eat Korean in K-Town, you know, we're going to hear Japanese. Like, it was everybody. I mean, it was really a true melting pot there in Southern California.
Yeah. Now, I will say, when I visited the South, you know, it wasn't bad at all, but it was like, you know,
things are a little different. Listen, we got sweet tea and biscuits. There ain't much to worry about down south. We all right. Yeah. Lover of Green says, at legal, Disney's DEI shenanigans are worse with their TV animation division. Their modern stuff is either mediocre i.e. Molly McGee, or Amphibia. I literally have not heard of those.
Yeah, I don't know what these are.
Or Borderline Insufferable. Haley's on it. It's
Mhm.
that bad. I have not. I think you're making these words up. I don't know. No, I'm not even kidding. I don't know
Amphibia,
what
yeah.
those things are. I only the other day have like learned about I learned about the controversy with like Has Been Hotel and Technolize or whatever, that like animation controversy. But like I don't watch a lot of that anime. I'm not like the Disney adult, right, who's constantly watching animation that's generally intended for younger folks. So I haven't watched that. I haven't seen it, and I probably am luckier for it. And I'm going to take your word on it, lover of green.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe you.
I'll say that it's probably true, and that WIA is not in league with just Disney, but they're in league with almost all the major animation houses. I can't get into too much detail, but there are things stirring that might change things a bit.
Well, that's good, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Raging Dino says, "Will Pixar ever have a resurgence, or is it dead? What do you think, Alan?"
With the way Disney is operating its business, laying off Pixar employees, I could see Pixar maybe one day going the way of Blue Sky.
Okay.
Are they going to keep that campus there in Northern California? I would bet it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, I bet they could sell that off and kind of move those employees around, and
yeah. I mean, all you need is the label. You don't need the building.
Nope, and they did have the IP. They really just the value is the IP, and it's like, yeah, we got the existing
technology.
IP.
The technology. I mean, look, Tangled was probably the first full feature animation Disney that I felt like, okay, I guess we're moving away from hand drawn animation because this looks pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
And so Disney already has the technology.
And it did look good. It did look good, and it's especially in its day, it looked very visually stunning.
Yeah. It looked like a Disney animated movie.
And by the way, I'll say this: if they start selling off component parts, that is not a component they would sell. I think Pixar's one they would not sell.
Well, they won't sell the name.
That's what I'm saying.
But
they're not going to sell the name.
But I don't see it as a separate entity of Disney.
That's the point. Is they can't separate it off like they could a Marvel or they could a Lucasfilm. Right. I think they could still break off Marvel or break off Lucasfilm. And now whether they will or won't, whatever, that's speculation. But they still could. I think Pixar is something that's so intertwined now that it would be very difficult to do that.
Well, it'd be like the touchstone of animation in terms of, we could do more. They basically could say, well, this is our Pixar brand of movies, and this is our Disney animation brand of movies. And
it's like the gold versus, the gold brand. This is our premium cut.
Exactly.
I get it.
Like Jack Daniels. Yeah.
Jack Daniels. Yeah. This is the premium Jack. Durna says the point of DEI is that if you grew up elite, you received a DEI education. If you didn't, you get access. It's essentially you don't get access.
Yeah.
It's essentially a class weapon. Yes.
Exactly. Because again, it should be about advocating for women in the animation industry, but it's not. It's about gatekeeping and saying, we have a movement and you're going to be one of our foot soldiers. And therefore we'll let you get a job at Disney. Congratulations.
And you're going to agree with what we say, or we're going to exclude you. And what we've seen recently is that it's actually very much anti-woman, right? It's very much anti-woman in the sense that women aren't allowed to have an opinion, aren't allowed to take an angle. And what if a woman comes out and says, well, I'm a woman and I don't think I should be competing against people with an XY chromosome. I think that's an unfair advantage. Well, all of a sudden they're not a woman you represent anymore. Right. They're outside of the rubric of protection. Right. They're not a real woman. Right.
Well, let me use their terminology. The whole point of this is so that your voice can be heard. But the reality is your voice is not being heard. Your voice has to be their voice. So you no longer have an identity. You have to have their identity, which is kind of antithetical to what this whole thing should have been about. You should have a writer's room, half men, half women, but each having their own specific voice, and viewpoint and perspective that can make your project richer. Instead, now, as I lay out in the article, these 5 female voices are now one solid voice, and their voice and perspective is that of the organization they represent.
And the thing is that as you move in this direction, you actually lose the value of that diversity because it becomes a monotonous blob, right? Because you've got to have this particular opinion, right? This current day opinion that gets updated as they add in new issues, right? If you don't have that, you don't fit in and you are exiled, right? You're off the island versus, hey, let's just let people come up with a good idea. And hey, if there's a good idea and there's a woman as the main character, like Aliens with Ripley or whatever, or Wesley Snipes as Blade, right? Like, do it. But we're not doing it because, oh, this is representation. We're doing it because it's a badass story. We're like, what if we made Shaft a vampire? And we're like, you know what? That's a fucking badass idea. Wesley Snipes sounds good. Send him in, right? It's just a good story.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a good story in and of itself. And we're missing that at Disney, Pixar, and many of the modern studios. Maka Vexel says, hug one out. My boy John Lasseter. Hey, listen, hugs to the chat. Hugs in the chat. I need a hug emoji. I don't have a hug emoji. H in the chat. H in the chat for John Lasseter. H in the chat.
Now I will say, just update on John Lasseter. He's over at Skydance.
Yes,
they are currently working on his first official movie. So,
well, which one was Luck?
Luck. He really
did not do well at all.
Yeah, and he really didn't have a whole lot of influence over that. That was already in process when he arrived there. I believe there's another movie that's coming out that he doesn't have much influence over. The one they're working on now is definitely a John Lasseter film.
Got it.
And I don't know anything about it because, but
a lot of H's in the chat. A lot of H's in the chat. Keep your hands to yourself if you want to keep your job. There we go. There we go. Well, we'll just keep that. We'll keep that outside the boardroom there. Lots of hugs in the chat. All right. So what I want to get to here is what is coming next. So Chris, who, was not paying attention, bad Chris. What is coming up for the defaults? Can you tease us a little bit or give us maybe part 3 or a little taste, a little shot of the future?
I mean, I'm still developing it, but the overall theme of it is basically the toxic environment that's now at Disney. Half of it, I think the first half will be about the DEI, the reimagining tomorrow. And then the second half is just the effect that DEI, that this new class of people who have been brought into Disney, and the work environment where you're just constantly walking on eggshells, constantly keeping your head down. That's what we're going through next. And I'm still, if you've experienced this at Disney, please feel free to reach out to Film Threat. Go to our website, filmthreat.com, and hit the contact page, and you can reach me and Chris there directly. The thing I'm learning about, the thing that's happening with our journey so far with Disney is that I've basically been there and unintentionally opening cans of worms. It first started with the Marvels. This really took off with my assessment and review of Wish, which opened a major can of worms, which then opened another can of worms. Then when I got to John Lasseter.
So by the way, when these things happen, is it people reaching out to you?
Yeah, they said it's basically, I heard what you said, and I want to tell you what's going on. And I'm pretty sure you got the exact same response.
And it's like, it's usually, does it go like this? Because this is usually how it goes with me. I heard what you said. You have no idea how right you are.
Yes. I'll give you the whole thing that started this series off was my review of Wish. I had gone to basically the LA premiere of Wish, and I sat there going, "This is the worst animated movie I've in Disney's 100-year history," and this is representing 100 years of Walt Disney Animation. And I go, "This is horrible." I mean, and if you know anything about, if you've been a sycophant of Disney like I have, if you read Illusions of Life, if you watched every animation behind the scenes documentary, you know the Disney style, and you know that movie wasn't it. It looked like it, but you knew it wasn't. And in my review, I took the trailer of Wish, and I just went through the trailer, getting scenes and showing you why this scene looks boring, why the animation here is horrible, why they're taking shortcuts in terms of difficult things to animate. You know,
it's a Disney skin suit, right? It's like they're wearing like the Disney face, but behind it's got no soul.
Yeah. So I went through as a guy who's just a fan of Disney animation. I go through why this was a horrible movie, and people reached out to us saying, you have no idea what it was like animating that movie. And we started getting little hints as to, you know, the civil war essentially that's going on at Disney at that time. And, you know, there's a whole.
Was it legitimately, and it was a actual civil war? There were people advocating, you know.
Well, let's put it this way: the civil war, I believe, is between the executives and the rank and file.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's, you know, let's just say if current patterns regarding animation hold true, you're going to see a fundamental shift in the animation industry, and I'll use two terms: overseas and AI.
No, and that's where it's always already going. I mean,
yeah, but now we're talking feature animation,
right?
Which
no,
is always in house.
But what I'm saying, like, yeah, no, overseas for sure, because look, I cover this pretty zealously, and look, I own up, I am definitely a weeb, right? So you know, I own that, right? I cover anime, manhwa, you know, manga. Like, it's just been blowing up because they're creating good stuff and good stories, and you can find stuff for every age group in Japanese, Korean, even Chinese stuff that's coming out right now is much better. Is years.
I mean, China's getting there. I'll just say that. But,
no. Well, but China's increasing fast, and like, especially if you read their manhwas, right? Their written stuff, it's actually really good. And honestly, too, it's pretty fucking based. Like, a lot of the storylines, I'm like, they can never write that in America, but like, it's very true. So
yeah, I mean, I think China's where Blue Sky was at. Definitely could have competed with them.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, like, and on AI, I don't know if you heard this story, but with localizations, because this has been an issue with the translators, they're now moving to AI localizers, right? Because the translations were getting messed up. So I think feature films going that direction is coming. It's just a matter of time, right? That's a technological hurdle.
Yeah, but going back to the original topic, the video I did, we found out was infiltrating Disney animators in a very, very low key, I mean, we were told that people at Disney, in the Disney animators, let's put it that way, saw the video and were like, yeah, he sees it. And that's kind of where this whole thing began.
So it got shared around the office. Let's say it got shared around the
office. And I don't know that the managers got to it, but people are singing it. And I
hear that. By the way, I hear that too, especially when I do my Reedy Creek stuff and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, they see you. They see you. You know, like the folks that are, you know, the rank and file, especially the people that are involved in the day to day. They're watching. They know.
Yeah. Yeah, and then from there, we got the WGA news, and that one is another ball that's rolling, and you probably want to get Chris on for that one.
yes, actually, that's a great one. Yeah, Chris, if you're still out there, I'm gonna drag you on for WGA because definitely want to get your insight on that. And speaking of which, K Nakajima says for Mexican 20 says non-inclusive hug to Legal Mindset and Alan. I will not accept it because it's not inclusive. It needs to be so inclusive right now.
Yeah, I'm not into non-inclusive hugs.
No, only inclusive hugs. Only inclusive. Okay, so I know you're going to look at future employees and future people that have reached out to you, but generally keeping on this theme of the Disney decline, right? And trying to come up with more documentation to really kind of paint a picture of how this corporation has fallen apart.
Yeah, because it is literally killing creativity. It's killing dreams. It's killing creativity. And ultimately we'll get into a little more in depth as to what happened with Wish. And then the last one is, I'm hoping the last one is going to be entitled "Fuck Walt," because that is the mantra of executive management, very high up executive management at Disney today. Did you see
the trending term, the Walt right? Did you see that?
Yeah. In fact, I need to tell you something off stream about
I will own that so hard every day, all day. Yeah. Anytime someone's, do you support Walt Disney? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, Walt Disney. Yeah, okay, yeah, Walt Disney. He created the company and made it what it is today. Yeah. I'm sorry, I get that pisses me off. That's the point. We're almost at 2 hours where I can just openly curse and there'll be no yellow flags. But it's like at that point, I'll take Walt Disney over this woke bullshit every single day.
Okay, right? Remind me after the stream. I have something to tell you about that.
Yeah. When we shut down the studio, we can have the attorney client slip me $1. I'll Saul Goodman me, and we're fully covered. Come at me, bros. But yeah, there's definitely more to come on that, and I've heard a lot of stories from folks about what's going in, and the people. What really makes it crazy for me, Alan, is the people they are removing, and what I've heard. Yeah. They are absolutely the most experienced and knowledgeable people. These are people that dedicated their life to Disney or the other branches. Maybe it was Pixar or Lucasfilms. Yeah. They are literally the most experienced people that are being removed.
Yeah. And which is what prompted my review of Wish, because it was clear they had been removed. Because that was the furthest thing from a Walt Disney animated feature since Snow White. Yeah.
Absolutely. Don, inappropriate. I'm going to time you out as a mod. Okay, but in terms of, let me say this, because it's a legal channel, right? When you're looking through this stuff, do you ever think to yourself, there's a potential lawsuit here? Does that ever pop up in your mind? Okay, it does come up a lot to you. When you're reviewing this, you're like, this could be a lawsuit, for sure over this.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, it's funny because,
by the way, and I'm just saying, I'm being general here. I'm not trying to be about anything specific.
Just believe me, I've been very careful as to how I phrase things, how I name when I name people, like Jennifer Lee. I pretty much just name her as a matter of fact, and then I make sure that a lot of these facts are basically readily available on the internet. So, I know a lot of behind the scenes of Raya, but I needed to make sure that what I talked about was already public. And so Wikipedia was really helpful in that. So I knew what I could say and what kind of, and it was a matter of now giving it a certain tone and certain context. But in terms of that, and then also, the criticism I have for it is like, well, are you really talking to people there? And I kind of frame things as, like a dirt sheet. I give it a definite dirt sheet feel to it, so that it's kind of like, well, this is what I heard, and so take it for what it is.
This is what I heard. Yeah, I mean, it's a rumor, right? That's a fact. I mean, it's a rumor. It is what it is. I mean, journalistic, source. Yeah. I mean, it's
like
information.
Felt that, that's kind of those things. How
it's the same validity as employee felt that, except for we all know what's happening. But,
yeah, exactly.
Except for we know it's 100% true. From K Nakajima from Mexican 20 says, I mean, not gay, but so you want me to get grabby?
No, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, look, listen, we can go full 90s if you want. We can go full 90s. But you know what you can grab, and you will never, ever, ever hear a single complaint from me, is you can grab a copy of Seedy Creek over here on IndieGoGo, my project supporting Steamboat Willie in the exposure of the Reedy Creek corruption. We are almost at 3K. So if you guys have not grabbed a copy, there's 700 of you in the chat right now on YouTube, and on Rumble, there's almost the exact same amount on Rumble. Make sure you've checked out Seedy Creek, checked out that project. It supports the public domain of Steamboat Willie, as well as gets through the story of Reedy Creek in a way that even a Disney adult can understand. So check out that project.
I did back it, by the way.
Thank you so much, Alan. You are very based, Chad. I will give you that.
I mean,
And of
I
course,
have to say, I've loved Disney all my life. The first movie I ever saw was Mary Poppins.
Mhm.
You know, I've been to the parks. I was a long time pass holder up until a couple of years ago.
I was an annual pass holder for a very long time until it went off the rails. And I will say, for a period of time, there was a client that provided an annual pass for me at the very end before I left. But I was an annual pass holder for a long time. I've got tons of pictures at Disney.
I was an annual pass holder until I couldn't afford it anymore.
Shit, I have to see if it won't totally expose my bloodline here or something like that. But I would do the runs. I went to go do the half marathon and the 10Ks and stuff. I did those all the freaking time at Disney. I did it all the time. And I had a great time. I had fun. I enjoyed drinking around the world. You know, it was a great time for me, but then things changed and Disney changed, and things.
I say this not to. I don't hate Disney. I just want it to come back the way it was. I want to see Walt's original vision brought to it. You know, the last time I'm pretty sure you remember when Roy was battling with Eisner, and Eisner kicked him off the board, which is how we got Iger, ironically. But you know, I remember that there have been movements that changed Disney fundamentally. Now that look back at it, maybe that wasn't a good thing.
Here, I can do this one here without me doxing myself. Here's me running right here at Epcot at Germany, right? So I did one of the runs a lot of the runs in there. I also was like the skinniest I've been in a long time because running definitely had me cutting weight hard, which actually doesn't look that good. I prefer to bulk up a little bit, but anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I will say once Iger came in, Iger didn't just ruin Disney. He ruined Star Wars and he ruined Marvel. And for the most part, he ruined the Muppets too. So
he did. They completely ruined them up. They don't give a shit about the Muppets.
Oh
Jim Henson, who's that asshole?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Who's that asshole? But guys, make sure you go over and check out Film Thread, check out the D files. I'm really excited. I'm definitely next. I will have Chris on to talk about some of the WGA stuff and all the crazy stuff that he's seen in his experience. And I want to say thank you for having me on Film Threat. I think it was super fun to go do the Star Wars one. Also, what it really inspired me to do, and something I'm working on right now, is like a draft class action. Like, if people were going to file a class action against Disney, what would it look like? Like current Disney. It was a little bit inspired by the Star Wars mock trial, because I'm like, we're kind of joking about this, but some of this is not a joke. Some of this, like, you could put it together into a way that's actionable, particularly as a shareholder claim, because Disney has lost so much value and they've done so bad that you can actually argue that they're knowingly sabotaging the sharedholders by sabotaging the share value.
Oh yeah. That's the thing.
Real argument.
That's the thing that confounds me the most. Why? I mean, you know more about this, but shareholders have to be.
We'll talk about it afterwards, but I think there's a lot of reasons why it hasn't happened yet, but I think it's certainly on the table.
Yeah.
That being said, guys, thank you so much. Please, a big thank you to Alan in the chat. A's in the chat for Alan on Rumble and on
this
YouTube.
Was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, super fun. Went a little bit over. I said 2 hours. I said max 2 hours, and we're at 2:01, so we're almost there. But we've already got the A's in the chat for you, Alan. People loved it. I had a good conversation. This was fun. So we're gonna hang out for a second and talk afterwards. But guys, till next time, I'll be back tomorrow about the same time. Maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe I'll do 9:30 or even 9 instead of 10:30. But I'll be back tomorrow as well. Take care, guys. Peace.